Happy Halloween! Actually, by the time you're watching this, it's probably past Halloween. And at the time I'm filming this, it isn't Halloween yet, but you know what I'm talking about. You saw the title, you know what you were in for. And as a sewist, I feel like Halloween is our Super Bowl, you know? Like, this is the time for all of the dream projects that are too impractical to do throughout the year. This is your chance to really show your skill and make something big and extravagant and awe-inspiring. I will not be doing that this year. I have done bigger costumes in the past. In fact, I think just last year I made a Galadriel costume based on the Rings of Power series. That was a lot of fun. But this year, I don't know. I don't have much time. Halloween is Friday. This is a Wednesday. Yeah. My personal monster is tight deadlines and time management. And also, we're not doing anything really big or exciting for Halloween. Like, I still don't really have anywhere to even wear my costume. Potentially, we might meet some friends downtown, or potentially we might just sit on our couch, eat Reese's Cups because we don't get trick-or-treaters where we are, and watch the season finale of Only Murders in the Building. Up in the air. But regardless, it's going to be chill. And so I decided this year I'm just going to make a chill Halloween costume. As you probably know, if you've watched any of my videos, I love 60s, 70s style. And so this year I've decided I wanted to make a retro flight attendant outfit, something based on the style of 60s, 70s flight attendants. The flight attendant outfits in this era are very much of their time. You look at them and you know that that's the 60s, 70s. They are very mod. They tend to have very bright colors. A lot of them are wearing little white go-go boots with their uniforms, which is just right up my alley. No pun intended. Which, by the way, this is a little sort of witchy dress that I made. I made this a few years ago, and I meant to make like a little witch hat to go with it. Which I still haven't done, but don't you think that would be so cute with this? Just imagine that I'm wearing a witch's hat, okay? For my costume, I'm going to be using an authentic pattern from the 70s that I bought on Etsy. The shop name is Solely Slowly. They are an absolutely fantastic shop. I love their patterns. I'm not going to be doing an exact recreation of any of these outfits. I decided, for me, in my mind, I wanted to kind of create my own airline. And there is kind of a reason for that. I will be getting into some of the more problematic history with these flight attendant outfits and the context under which women were working. So in my mind, I wanted to create Sunny Skies Airline, and my uniform is going to be this bright orange and yellow. I want to keep very much the kind of color blocking that you see in a lot of these outfits, but just kind of add my own little twist to it. So this is a bedsheet that I picked up at Goodwill. This is an actual piece of fabric that I bought at Goodwill. And yeah, I think they look super cute and fun and sunny together. And I'm excited to get sewing. So let's cut out the pieces. With any historical costuming, context is important. So while I cut pattern pieces and sew the darts, let me paint you a picture. 25-year-old Ellen Church was a registered nurse and licensed pilot. Unfortunately for her, the year was 1930, so only one of those was available to her as a career option. When Boeing Air Transport, forerunner of United, by the way, ejected her job application like a plane door mid-flight, she proposed an idea that would change air travel forever, having a registered nurse on board flight to assuage nervous flyers. Now, I'm sure that a lot of us have experienced a rocky flight. I once ate a bad chicken Caesar before getting on an 8-hour flight, and to this day, the smell of Caesar dressing makes my stomach turn. But that's nothing compared to what passengers in the 30s had to deal with. According to the National Air and Space Museum, flying was loud, cold, and unsettling. Airliners were not pressurized, so they flew at low altitudes and were often bounced about by wind and weather. Air sickness was common. Air travel remained a rigorous adventure well into the 1940s. Needless to say, people weren't flying for the free bag of peanuts. The president of Boeing liked the idea, and Ellen got to work. She created the job description and trained the first flight attendants. In doing this, Ellen created an entirely new career that was immediately women-dominated. And remember, in the 1930s, America was in the midst of the Great Depression. People stood on street corners selling apples for a nickel so that they could scrape up the cash to feed their families. By 1932, not only were a quarter of Americans unemployed, but many people who were still employed had their wages cut so drastically that they had to stand in bread lines. Furthermore, employers were much more likely to hire the traditional breadwinners, men. I mean, I recently learned how to turn a strap inside out using a knitting needle, and I thought that was pretty amazing. But a job that was open to women was quite literally life-changing. And they sent in their resumes in droves. According to the New York Times, 2,000 women applied for just 43 positions offered by Transcontinental and Western Airlines in December 1935. and I thought LinkedIn job postings were cutthroat. However, there was a darker side to all of this. A 1936 article in the New York Times described the requirements to be a flight attendant, or hostess as it was called then. The girls who qualify for hostesses must be petite, weight 100 to 118 pounds, height 5 feet to 5'4" inches, age 20 to 26 years. Add to that the rigid physical examination each must undergo 4 times every year, and you are assured of the bloom that goes with perfect health. Rigid, girl, I haven't been to the dentist in 3 years. And not only did they have to be attractive, but they had to be single. If you got married, you were expected to resign, and if you didn't, you were fired. In fact, that's what happened to Ruth Carroll Taylor, who was the first African-American female flight attendant. She worked her first flight in 1985. Nope. She worked her first flight in February 1580. Nope. I think I've talked about this before. I'm bad with numbers, and I don't mean that I'm bad at math. I'm bad at saying numbers. She worked her first flight in... Nope, almost did it again. She worked her first flight in February 1958, and less than 6 months later, she got fired because she got married. She did go on to become an activist for the civil rights movement and women's rights, so still had a strong impact, still left behind an amazing legacy, but awful situation that she was put in, for sure. Thankfully, as America moved past World War II, Elvis Presley, I Love Lucy, diners, drive-ins, and jukeboxes, and into the 1960s, the requirements to become a flight attendant did become more relaxed. In terms of experience and skill set, I mean. Like, you were no longer required to be a registered nurse, but yes, you did still have to be hot, you did still have to meet a certain weight requirement, and you could not be married. In fact, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission was created in 1964, and its very first complainants were female flight attendants complaining about age discrimination, weight requirements, and bans on marriage. And that brings us to the flight attendant uniforms of the 1960s and 70s. And to learn about that, we got to talk about a woman named Mary Wells. Mary Wells was basically the real-life female Don Draper, only bolder. A copywriting genius and advertising legend, she not only conquered Madison Avenue's boys club, but when she was denied a promotion she knew she deserved, she left her prestigious marketing job and founded her own advertising agency, becoming the first female CEO of a company on the New York Stock Exchange. And one of her campaigns is practically woven into the fabric of American culture, the iconic I Heart New York. Love that. So before she started her own advertising agency, one of her biggest successes was a campaign she ran for Braniff International Airways, dubbed the end of the plane, which, listen, someone who loves alliteration, loves wordplay, I gotta give it to her. That's a catchy title. Unfortunately, my understanding, and I could be wrong, but based on my research, the campaign mostly consisted of hiring fashion designer Emilio Pucci to design brighter, more revealing outfits for female flight attendants. In fact, Mary Wells told Businessweek in 1967, "When a tired businessman gets on an airplane, we think he ought to be allowed to look at a pretty girl." Yeah, that quote aged like an avocado. But at the end of the day, she was hired to get the airline more customers, and oh my gosh, did she succeed. Her campaign was considered a critical turning point for the airline, and it was so successful that many other airlines began to follow suit, decking their female flight attendants out in mini dresses bright enough to outshine a lava lamp, and go-go boots with heels so high that their bouffant hair was in a different stratosphere. Obviously, if you've hopped on a flight recently, we don't see flight attendants dressed like that anymore. And it's not just because the fashion changed either. So during this time period, airfare was actually regulated by the government. And so because airlines couldn't compete with each other in terms of pricing, they tried to outdo each other in terms of commodities. So providing the tastiest snacks, providing the best in-flight entertainment, and of course, giving passengers who at this time were mostly businessmen, pretty single flight attendants to serve them. The role of flight attendant shifted from hospitality to marketing. National Airlines' innuendo-heavy "I'm Cheryl, fly me" campaign summed that up perfectly. It also perfectly explains why airlines have PR and HR departments now. However, as soon as airline tickets were deregulated in 1968, uniforms started to become a lot more conservative. Of course, now you have to play 4D chess with your computer, trying to outsmart price surging and algorithms and who even knows, trying to get a decent deal so that you can fly to Ohio for Thanksgiving. Hey, Allie from the future hopping in here. As I was trying to wrap this up, I was having a lot of thoughts and feelings, and even though I used a ton of words, I don't think that I ever really stated my points as clearly as I wanted to. Kind of like how every Christmas I'll plow through an excessive amount of gift wrap and tape, and somehow still there will be a strip of the original packaging clearly visible. So now that I've had more time to process, let me try to land this plane a little more smoothly. Gosh, I hate how easily that pun came out of my mouth. First and foremost, as someone who loves the fashion of this era but also really loves history, I don't want to romanticize the past. Even though dangling go-go boots in front of me is as distracting as putting the entrance to a secret room in front of Nancy Drew, I want to acknowledge the dirt behind the glamour. Second, even though the rules these women had to follow were totally ridiculous and messed up and unfair, the flight attendants who fought back, filing complaints, pushing for fairness, helped get rid of weight checks, age limits, and marriage bans. That's a pretty impressive legacy to leave behind. And don't get me wrong, things are still not perfect, but we have come such a long way. And as someone who benefits directly from the women who came before me, I am so grateful for them. I hope that you enjoyed this little history lesson. I loved having an excuse to give it. And if you would be interested in more, please let me know. I minored in history, even though I already had 2 majors, like sheerly because I love history so much. I'll have some links below if you want to learn a little more about the history of flight attendants and some of the women and things that I mentioned. But that's my little history lesson. Thank you for joining me, class. And oh my gosh, this already looks so cute. So let's start sewing these pieces together. Okay, as sometimes happens, I got so obsessed with my little research rabbit hole that I lost track of what I'm actually doing here. So this is a very simple beginner-friendly dress. It has princess seams, so essentially all you have to do is sew the panels together. So for some reason, the pieces don't quite line up at the armhole here. But I am fairly certain that I did this correctly. So I'm just gonna ignore that and we're gonna press on. So I'm gonna pin the side front in next. Listen, there have been times when I've said, oh, these pieces don't line up, but I'm gonna soldier on. And that has bitten me in the butt. Kind of like a 5 a.m. flight, you know? You tell yourself, oh, it'll be fine. I'll just roll out of bed and get it out of the way. Nope. It's going to be 4:15, you've been awake since 3 a.m., and now you're slouched in some thin cushioned metal chair with 2 narrow armrests, waiting for them to announce your boarding group, feeling like you're in hell's waiting room, and you're going to feel like death warmed over the rest of the day. It's just, oh gosh, 5 a.m. flights are never worth it. But thankfully, the fact that these pieces didn't line up perfectly was fine. I just trimmed the excess later. And speaking of tiny disasters that make you want to scream quietly into your caffeinated beverage of choice, it's time for a beloved classic, realizing your bobbin has run out just when you thought you were making progress. After reloading the bobbin, I finished sewing up the panels. Then I attached the front and back by sewing the shoulder seams. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is currently my waistline. I think this is honestly a foot too big. Look at all that fabric. It is quite large. I feel like I could steal someone's trick-or-treat bag and hide it under here and no one would ever know. I wouldn't do that, obviously. Maybe I was looking at the photos wrong. Maybe it's kind of supposed to be a shift dress. But regardless, it just looks like a potato bag right now. There is no shape to this. I don't know. Even when I wear a shift dress, it feels like there's a little more shape to it, whereas this is just a straight rectangle on my body, which honestly is fine. It's not that big of a deal. I'm just gonna take it in quite a bit down the sides, really just to the waist. I'll do a little bit lower so that, it kind of evens out. But I do if I take in the waist, I do kind of the idea of the skirt still being a little bit flared. But aside from that, it's looking very, very cute. This is a pretty easy peasy costume. If I like the way this looks, honestly, I might make another one tomorrow. It is kind of fun. I feel obviously this is from the 60s, but it also does just look very 60s, sort of the 60s retro, sort of space trend, Anyway, I'm gonna take this in, add the collar, hem it, and we're pretty good, honestly, on the dress. So let's wrap it up. So I just flipped the dress inside out and pinned it to more where I want the seams to be. And there's so much fabric on the sides here. I feel like if I wanted to just wear it like this, I could be maybe a very colorful bat or a fish. And these could be my fins, a little goldfish maybe. Freddy the goldfish, or Freddy Fish from the computer games, if anyone remembers that. Anyway, I should sew this up. Following my little trail of pins, I shaved several inches off the side and back seams. Now, I should mention, when you take in a piece of clothing like this, you really should take it in evenly across all the seams. Otherwise, you're going to get puckering. But I didn't want to mess with the color blocking in the front, so I accepted a few wrinkles as part of the deal. Okay, we are looking so much better in terms of fit. So I'm going to finish the armholes by just using bias tape to hide the raw edges. Watch me make these raw edges disappear. You know, I was actually really close to doing a magician costume this year. Anyway, I sewed the bias tape to the right side of the armhole, flipped it to the inside, and gave it a clean edge stitch to hold it perfectly in place. Originally, I was going to add a collar that gave the dress a mock turtleneck look, but I decided that I liked it how it looked, so I finished the neckline with bias tape, just like the armholes. In my humble opinion, a key factor in separating a basic costume from a great one are the accessories. So for this outfit, I wanted to make a matching hat with pilot wings. Okay, so I had planned to buy some pilot wings for my little hat on Amazon or, from Walmart or something like that. It turns out Walmart doesn't have that. Amazon does, but there's no 2-day shipping or anything with it. It would take a week to get them, which in retrospect, I guess that makes sense. I don't know how often people are ordering pilot wings from Amazon. And when they do, I don't know. I feel like that's not an item that Amazon feels like it needs to keep in its warehouses in case someone desperately needs pilot wings in the next 12 hours. So what I am going to try to do is make some out of clay. And we'll see how this goes. The one and only time I have used this clay was a couple of years ago for my Miss Frizzle costume. I made some little planet, sort of Saturn-inspired earrings to go with my costume. They were very heavy, so learned a little bit. Gonna try and make this a little bit thinner. I hope this clay is still good. I think it'll be okay. Now, I don't have any rolling pins or anything like that. I should get some. I'm just kind of in the situation where I don't really bake often enough that I need it, but the few times I do need it, it would be nice to have. So instead, I'm going to be using my exfoliating advanced pore refining treatment, 4% BHA. This is not an advertisement. This is not sponsored. This is just the only thing I have on hand that would work for a rolling pin. And it's small, but the wings should also be small, so I think it'll be okay. And while I have you here, speaking of Halloween, there is a debate that we are having in my family. And frankly, it is kind of tearing us apart. We have very passionate advocates on both sides of this issue. Try and figure out which side I'm on. I know it's going to be very subtle. So you know how there are just certain things about your family or your life growing up that you don't realize aren't normal and aren't universal experiences or the way that everybody does things until, you grow up and you move out and you start living with other people. If you can relate to that, please let me know in the comments what they are. I find stuff like that so funny. But one thing that I was shocked to discover when I started college and I started living with roommates was how many things my mom put in the freezer that other people do not. I thought everyone kept bread and butter and nuts and batteries and oh my gosh, so many things. I remember opening the fridge and being like, why is there a loaf of bread in the fridge? And honestly, now that I'm an adult and I live in my own house, I love not putting things in the freezer. I mean, obviously I'll freeze meats or stuff like that. And I'll usually have a couple of extra loaves of bread that I keep in the freezer, and then we'll just take them and thaw them out. But I'm like, wow, it is so nice not having to toast or warm up everything anytime I want to use it. And for the most part, that's harmless. You can warm most things up, let it thaw for a little bit. It's fine. The one thing that my mom loves to keep in the freezer that absolutely drives me insane are Reese's peanut butter cups. Here's the thing. If you have never had the experience of biting into a frozen Reese's peanut butter cup, how to describe it? Have you ever tried chewing a hockey puck or biting a coin of any kind or chewing on car keys? I've never been ice fishing, but if you had to open up the hole in the ice with your teeth, I imagine that's probably a pretty similar experience. Trying to eat a Reese's peanut butter cup that has been frozen takes what should be a wonderful, delightful experience and turns it into the most frustrating 10 minutes of your life. Call me crazy, but when I'm eating a chocolate, I happen to enjoy being able to bite into it, like all the way through. And especially a Reese's peanut butter cup. I think like there's layers, there's different things going on there. I want to enjoy it all in one bite. I hate it so much. And there's really no need for it. Like, let's be so for real. There is nothing natural in Reese's peanut butter cups. Even mold isn't getting any nutritional value out of Reese's peanut butter cups. Like when I was a kid, I was one of those who I would try to hold on to my Halloween candy for as long as possible. I would have Halloween candy stashed in my closet for months. I can assure you, those Reese's never went bad. But my mom didn't just do it because she wanted to like increase the longevity of the Reese's cups or anything like that. She did it because she actually likes to eat frozen Reese's peanut butter cups. And here's the thing that really drives me insane. We've had this debate for a while. Whenever she tries to get additional votes on her side, she will always ask the question, hey, do you like your Reese's peanut butter cups cold or warm? And I'm like, no. That is not the question. I don't mind my Reese's peanut butter cold. If you want to put Reese's peanut butter in the fridge, no problem with that whatsoever. Totally fine. My issue is when they are frozen solid, because then I'm pretty sure that I look the exact same way that my dog eats trying to consume a rawhide bone. Like I literally, you have to like eat it with your canine teeth to try to break into it. It's a little bit triggering for me, honestly. Anyway, so that is the debate that is tearing my family apart. Obviously, I am very passionately in favor of non-frozen. And again, let me be clear. This is not cold versus warm Reese's. This is frozen versus non-frozen, okay? Please vote in the comments. Unless you agree with my mom. I'm kidding. But yeah, she sent me a video last night. I think Ryan Seacrest is hosting Wheel of Fortune now. And you know, he and Vanna White always do like a little bit of banter at the end of each episode. And so he was saying that he loves like chocolate and peanut butter candies and he likes them frozen. And so mom sent that clip to all of us last night. Poking the bear. So I am taking it to you, my public. Please let me know what you think. And again, also let me know if there's anything that you didn't realize was weird until after you moved out on your own, because I do find that so fascinating. Okay, I'm gonna try to carve out these wings now. We're gonna see how this goes. Spoiler alert, that was stupid. A pencil tip was far too thick. I thought I could just make these wings like a cutout cookie. And to be fair, it definitely would have been better if I had an actual sculpting tool, but the ridges were too jagged and the clay didn't peel off the table smoothly, so I ended up making the different pieces individually and kind of pressing them together. Then I used a pin to define the lines. It was definitely a little janky, but for a Halloween costume made in a rush, it was fine. I poked a few holes so I could sew it to my hat, then popped it in the oven.
Oh, you're baking it, I see.
Yeah, so it'll be nice and hard.
What if you air fry it?
All right, the wings are in the oven. The pilot wings are in the oven, I should say. I'm not making chicken wings. Maybe I should though. That sounds kind of good. Anyway, wings are in the oven. Non-edible wings. I have a timer going for 7 minutes. Hopefully that is correct. And in the meantime, I am going to start working on the hat. So first step is to measure my noggin. I think I have a pretty small head, but I don't know. I'll tell you my measurements. You can tell me yours. I think that's about right. I look like such a hippie right now. All right, so there's the beginning. Okay, oof, stuck to my forehead. Like 24.5 inches. Okay. Really, I need to measure my forehead, which that is going to be truly humbling. Got like 6 fingers. Let's see what we're dealing with here. I don't know, like 6 inches. I'm kind of just gonna wing this. And we'll see how it turns out. How bad can it be? All right. Let's go figure out how to make this cap. Excuse me while I dig high school geometry from the back of my brain, where it's been rotting behind an encyclopedic knowledge of Five Nights at Freddy's lore. Okay, the circumference of my head was about 21.5 inches, and the width of my forehead was 6 inches, give or take. So I cut a band about 23 inches long to give some extra space for seam allowance, and so it wouldn't squeeze my head like one of those molds they use to make watermelons grow into like cube or heart shapes, and 8 inches wide. Then I cut a circle for the top of the hat. I calculated the diameter by dividing 21.5 by pi, then I added a little extra for seam allowance. And yes, I did have to Google how to calculate diameter using circumference, but give me a break. I majored in journalism and creative writing, okay? The closest I've had to a math class in almost a decade has been analyzing the meter in poetry. Putting my STEM superbrain aside and leaning on my usual two overworked and underpaid brain cells, I gathered the edges of the circle until it kind of looked like one of those mob caps they wear in historical Williamsburg. Oh my gosh, that looks so weird. Anyway, next step. After that, I sewed the short ends of the band together and pinned and sewed it to the circle, making kind of a flimsy conga drum shape. You know what? Scratch that. It looks like a chef's hat that took a nosedive into the fondue pot. I pulled it on my head and played with the brim until it was about the shape that I wanted. When I was pretty happy with how it looked, I pinned the brim down, making sure to catch my bird's nest of hair in some of the pins, and I sewed it down. Putting the hat aside for a minute, I pulled my wing out of the oven. Again, singular, non-avian, non-edible wing. And it was time to paint it gold. By the way, can we take a moment to admire this setup? We didn't have any paper plates, and we certainly didn't have any artist palettes, but we did have this empty box of crackers in the recycling, so that's what I used. We may not be fancy, as you can probably tell from the fact that these are Walmart brand crackers, but I do think I deserve a few points for resourcefulness. After the wings dried, I sewed them to the brim of the hat. As a final touch, I realized that I needed some white gloves. The only place I could find white gloves at the last minute was Walgreens. Apparently they're for moisturizing treatments, not mid-century glamour, but hey, close enough. Conveniently, a neighbor had this huge suitcase by their trash can for a few days, so like an optimistic raccoon, I carried it home and painted a logo for Sunny Skies Airline on it. It may not be first class, but I don't know, maybe like economy plus? And with that, this outfit was ready to taxi down the runway. The tarmac? What is that called? So please, make sure your tray table is in the upright position and get ready to take off with Sunny Skies Airline. Fly the friendly skies with our even friendlier staff, consisting of men and women of all ages, sizes, marital statuses, and blood types. Actually, Dollar Store Malibu Barbie is the only employee we have for now, but give us time. And while our pilots may be members of the Good Old Boys Club, we promise that they are the best boys. Just don't be surprised if they don't stay in uniform. At Sunny Skies Airline, every flight is more than a trip. It's an occasion. So wherever you're headed, from Palm Beach to Palm Springs, step into the sunshine with Sunny Skies Airline. Brighter horizons begin here. I don't think they're gonna let me on my flight. I recorded a whole outro and then realized I never actually hit record. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I had a lot of fun creating this costume. I don't know that it's the best, most polished costume that I've ever made, but I think that it turned out pretty cute. I had a lot of fun making it. I hope that you had a lot of fun watching. If you would be interested in more sort of historical sewing, historical costuming kind of videos, please let me know. I am a huge history nerd, and I would be more than open to make this into an ongoing series if that's something that people are interested in. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, it really helps me out if you give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe. I do a lot of sewing kind of creative videos. I would love to have you around here. And until then, I hope that you have a wonderful day. Safe travels if you happen to be doing that. And I hope I see you in the next video. Bye.